Hello and welcome back to March Madness EVMS Edition. I'm JD Valley and I'm joined here with my colleague, Mr. Reveiw.
Thanks for having me, JD. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. We had a wonderful first round that had a number of close battles. In the South, we saw Inouye beat Smith, Russell take down Larson, Scott get past Bussey, C. Howe win over L. Howe, Sinnott beat Ferguson, and Hansen beat Wolf. Mr. Reveiw, what are your thoughts on these matchups?
Smith losing to Inouye is expected, although I thought his class had put up a better fight. Russell taking down Larson was kind of expected, although I thought Mr. Larson's class, being 8th graders and having the experience, would put up a better fight. But in the end, I guess youthfulness prevailed. Mr. Bussey was going to have a hard time beating Mrs. Scott, especially after you learn about the preparation her class put in, and then him being absent and not present that day. That's a lot to put on. So Miss Scott's class moves on. Now the Howe versus Howe was a real battle. Mr. Howe's class was losing 9 out of the 10 questions, but that 10th question is when his team took the lead, and that's the one that counts, and his class moves on. And then Sinnott beating Ferguson was a minor upset in my mind, but nothing that would make the front page. I don't give them much of a chance in the second round at all. And then Hansen beating Wolf, that was a tough game to watch. Those two being neighbors and friends, having to go against each other like that. But Mr. Hansen was able to put that aside and advance his team on to the next round.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Reveiw. Now let's take a look at the outcomes in the North region. We saw Galena beat Farr, Bavacqua beat Davis, Irwin beat Stokes, Blewett beat Williams, Malsum beat Bordwell, and Orndorff beat Irish. So what's your take on these first-round matchups in the North, and were there any surprises for you?
Yeah, thanks, JD. I was surprised to see Galena beat Farr. I mean, if you've ever looked at her roster, she does not have much to work with there. But as she says, they are a scrappy bunch. Bavacqua beating Davis was kind of expected with all his experience behind him and Davis being kind of new. But she has a bright future ahead of her at EVMS in the trivia contest. Now, Irwin versus Stokes was going to be a grind. But again, this is where I think experience prevailed with all her years here at the middle school. The surprise of the North for me was Mrs. Williams not showing up and leaving her class out on a limb. I just can't believe that would happen. Mr. Blewett, being the good coach and teacher he is, took advantage of that and leads his team on to the second round. Mr. Orndorff beating Mrs. Irish wasn't much of a surprise at all. I mean, come on, why is he still playing against people this age? He needs to find peers his own age to compete against.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm just getting breaking news over the wire that due to a recent EVMS investigation, it seems that Mr. Orndorff has been disqualified from the competition due to improper funds he received.
That is shocking.
Previous payments. So we're going to cut really quick, and we're going to see if we can reach Mr. Orndorff for comment on this. Hi, Mr. Orndorff. Do you have any comment on the recent NCAA standard?
I don't have anything to say right now.
No comment.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I've got 2 more.
Oh well, looks like Irish has advanced to the second round.
Yeah, that is a big shame what happened with Mr. Orndorff, but honestly not surprising.
Not at all. Well, thank you for being here for these reviews and highlights. That leaves us now with our top 12 matchups, and if you have some time, I'd love to go over each matchup and see what we think is going to happen.
Yeah, definitely would love to help.
Let's do it. In the North, we have Galena versus Bavacqua, Irwin versus Blewett, and Malsum versus Irish. Now, in this first matchup, I got to go with Galena. I think it's a scrappy bunch. I think it's a team that has a lot of potential to move forward and maybe even take this whole competition.
I think something I resonated in my reviews is experience, and Mr. Bavacqua, his experience, I think gets his class through to the championship round.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. In our second matchup, Irwin versus Blewett, I'm going to have to go with Mr. Blewett. I think he's got a strong squad, and he's been the one most seen in our office talking about these matchups. He's really passionate about what we're doing here.
I'm going to have to disagree. I think Mr. Blewett got lucky in his first round. Miss Williams not showing up and all. I don't think he's going to be able to handle Mrs. Irwin's class.
Okay, all right. And then finally we have Malsum versus Irish. I'm going to go with Malsum on this one. I think he has what it takes to go off in this top 12 matchup, and we'll see how he performs in the top 6 if he makes it.
I'm going to go with Irish here. I'm sure they're a little disappointed they're getting through, and people are going to comment that they really didn't win. But I think they have a chip on their shoulder because they want to prove that they belong in that second round. So I'm picking Mrs. Irish over Malsum.
Okay, great. Moving on to the South matchups, we have Inouye versus Russell, Scott versus C. Howe, and Sinnott versus Hansen. Now, so this first matchup, Inouye versus Russell, I just had a discussion with Miss Inouye earlier today, and she seems excited and ready for this second round. I'm going to pick Inouye off of that. I think they have a lot of momentum going into this next round.
My gut's telling me Mr. Russell. He's kind of a quiet, sneaky type. Not always sure what's going on there, but I think he's got his class prepared, and I think he'll move him on to the second round.
Sure. Okay. Next, we have Scott versus C. Howe. I'm going to give this one to C. Howe. I think it has to be. You know, the strength he showed in the first round, and to really, you know, to put the team on his back like that and to advance against El Howe was great, and I think he's going to carry that on into the next round.
Yeah, that was a great matchup and a great last-second shot and comeback, but that's not going to work so well against Mrs. Scott and her preparation. Man, that squad knows what they are doing. I'm picking them to go through against Mr. Howe.
Okay, and finally we have Sinnott versus Hansen. I'm going to take Sinnott on this one. I think they have what it takes. I think they're a good team that has a lot of knowledge about what we're asking, and I think that's what's going to lead them over the line.
I think Mr. Hansen's got the slight edge in this one. That last game being so emotional, have to take on one of his friends. I think he's going to regroup and really focus and use that scientific inquiry and stuff he has to get his team on board. So I'm picking them to go on through to the championship round.
Sounds good. So, as we know, the winners of the top 12 round will advance to our final round, the Sweet Six. To those teams who have already been eliminated or who will be eliminated this next round, this isn't the end of the road. You'll have the opportunity to participate in our consolation pool using the same Kahoots as the top 12. Check the bracket across from Mr. Rovik's room for more information on your matchups. We hope you're excited for Wednesday because we know we are.
And hope to see many of you on Friday.